Okay. Hello, everybody. Good morning, I think, for some, and I guess we're into the afternoon out east. Um, this webinar will, as Dr. Baxter said, it will be recorded, so you can certainly have a chance to listen to it again or have your staff listen to it. I think it's important, and again, one of the nice things is you can certainly be able to have your patients listen to it as well. We're not going to say anything to you that we wouldn't expect your patients to be to have to have access to. It's part of our ethics is that certainly we should never be having a discussion with you that we wouldn't want the patients to be privy to. So at any rate, by the way, this entire presentation is also available for you at the website. I don't mean just the webinar, I mean the actual PowerPoint presentation is available for our innate choice customers to download and use at no cost. And you can also send your patients to this presentation as well. So the reason we wanted to do a webinar using this presentation is so that you will have an example if you did choose later on to use this presentation with your patients. You'll have an example of me doing the webinar. I'll probably go into a little bit more depth than you'd like to, but at least you'll have an audio resource for you if you choose to actually present this PowerPoint to your patients. And of course, the other option is you can certainly just send your patients to view the presentation online, the PowerPoint presentation online. So anyway, without any further ado, I think we can get off the slide with me on it. And again, what I'd like to start out is just to try to explain why what we do is different. And a lot of times I get asked why we only have a few products, just a few products, and the answer is simple. It's not because I couldn't produce more products, and it's not because I don't think I could sell more products. It's because we started off with some founding scientific principles that we said, we're going to create products based on our principles, and we're not going to create products based on what we think we can sell or what we think has the greatest markup or anything else. We feel that our job is to role model for you what you should do with your clients. So we don't think that doctors should have things on their shelf based on any other criteria other than what is best for the patient outcome. We feel very, very strongly that we should never, ever put doctor income at a higher priority level than patient outcomes. And also, I really think that, anything that Dr. Baxter, oh, I'm okay. I just saw Dr. Baxter walk in. He scared me. He's a sidler. He snuck up on me there. Anyway, we just think that our job is to role model for you that, the criteria for which you should make decisions. And that for us always has to be about patient outcomes. And certainly there's nothing wrong with doctor income. That's fine as long as it's ethical and as long as that income is based on the idea that every decision that we make is based on what's best for our patients. We're not in I believe very, very strongly that healthcare is not the same business model as if you were selling toasters or widgets or anything else. Is that I don't believe we sell adjustments, and I don't believe we sell products in our offices. I think that we sell patient results. We sell outcomes. So everything that we do, really, our product, we have to understand is that our product is outcomes. It's not the things that we sell in order to to make a living. And that's really important. I think if we can all wrap our heads around that, we'll understand that it's really not about trying to increase the number of adjustments that people get from us or increase the number of products that they buy from us. It's about trying to increase their outcomes. And sometimes that means that they need an awful lot of intervention, and sometimes it means they don't need so much. But that should always be the criteria. So anyway, let's move forward. And one of the things that we decided to do, we sat down and wrote a mission statement like I'm sure many of you have for your clinics, and we said, look, we feel that integrity means that we have to make a promise to provide honest information regarding how to consume the proper and sufficient amounts of the required essential nutrients with or without our products. We feel very strongly that, one of the things that we should do for you is to make sure that if there's a way that your patients can be sufficient and healthy without our products, then that's something that we should teach you and talk to you about. And it's also something that we think that you should teach to your patients and talk to them about. That clearly, I think that the goal of any ethical practitioner or any ethical corporation that's in the healthcare field is to make themselves obsolete if possible. And although we know we know that isn't a realistic possibility, I think we should always keep that in mind, that what we don't want to create is a dependency on what we do. We want to create people who are as healthy as they can in the most independent way possible. So that's a big part of what we do. We also always we wrote down what we thought our priorities should be, and we thought our priority should always be education to promote informed health decisions, not marketing to promote sales. So everything that we do is that we're trying to create educated consumers. We want you to make decisions based on the best information and the best criteria possible. And we want you to teach your patients the same thing. And we think that's really, again, just believe so strongly that health is based on self-responsibility. And so our job isn't to dictate what people do. Our job is to provide people with the knowledge that's required so they can make the best decisions for themselves about not only our services, but about all healthcare services. Then we say, well, listen, how do we decide? It's so confusing out there for people. I always say the supplement industry is well, there's very few supplements. Most of them are nutraceuticals, but the natural supplement or natural healthcare field is as predatory as the pharmaceutical field is. There's so much misinformation out there, and sadly, the more I study this and the more I've gone into it, the more I realize that a lot of it is deliberate. It's misleading people and trying to, again, it's all about promoting sales of products instead of promoting patient outcomes. So we decided that we needed to make a gold standard, come up with a gold standard criteria, and that we would never develop a product or promote a product or take a commission for promoting someone else's product that didn't meet this gold standard criteria. So this is the criteria that we came up with. The first one is that the supplement must represent an essential nutrient. What that means is that if we understand that the body's self-healing and self-regulating, which clearly it is, that is not only just a chiropractic premise, it's clearly a physiological premise, that the only thing that we should put in our mouth is something that we require that we're missing. The idea of a supplement is not to treat a condition. It's simply to treat a deficiency in an essential nutrient which we require in order to express health and to prevent illness. There's no essential nutrient that you only require for a short period of time in your life, and there's no essential nutrient that you only require because you have a disease or a condition or a symptom or a diagnosis. Essential nutrients are things that our bodies require because of our genes, because of the fact that we're the human species. There are just some nutrients that we require which are essential, which means that we can't make them ourselves, and we require ingestion of these nutrients from our diet. So we decided that we were going to make the world's first supplement company. We are not a nutraceutical company. Nutraceuticals are not something that are required by everybody every day. They're not something that are required because your body can't produce them or your body requires them to express health. Nutraceuticals are aimed at a disease or symptom, and in fact, nutraceuticals are no different in principle at all from pharmaceuticals. The goal of a nutraceutical is to change a symptom or sign of illness by overriding the regulatory mechanism of the body. Nutraceuticals are not designed to supply the body with something that it requires, but that it's missing. So our innate choice is based from the beginning on the idea that the only thing that we would require that makes sense to pay for, to put in, for people to ingest, is something that they require that's essential, that they're missing. We don't treat conditions. The only thing, I'll tell you what, essential nutrients are not treatments for disease, but they are panaceas. They are panaceas for any illness that is either already present or will become present in the future because of a deficiency of those essential nutrients. And if you look at the literature to the extent that I have, what becomes very clear is that the pandemic of chronic illness we have is based on deficiencies of essential nutrients. And those will never be fixed by treating the symptoms of those essential nutrient deficiencies with nutraceuticals or pharmaceuticals. A nutraceutical or pharmaceutical can never address the cause of a problem, because the cause of the problem is a deficiency of the essential nutrients, whether that be essential nutrients in terms of nutrition, and of course we also have essential nutrients in terms of exercise and the way we think, positive thoughts and love and all those things. But the fact is that all illnesses are caused by either a deficiency of what we require or a toxicity of things that are obviously poisonous or represent a stressor to us. So again, uh, this is part of what makes innate choice unique is really the standards that we have set and what kind of information we want to impart not only to you but to your clients as well. The second thing is that there must be a body of research. And by the way, a body of research isn't a single research study that somebody can quote. A body of research means that there is enough information from enough different sources, different funding sources, different labs around the world. There's a body of research indicating that there is, in fact, a dietary deficiency of the nutrient complex. Let's be very clear that just because something is essential doesn't mean that it requires supplementation. There are many, many, many essential nutrients that the vast majority, if not all people, get from their diet. And so just because something essential does not mean that it's justification for people to pay for supplementation. There has to be a body of research indicating that there is a dietary deficiency of that nutrient complex. And so again, there are going to be some things based on how we produce our food now, based on the fact of what kind of foods we eat in our society, based on of what foods are available, that there are going to be some things that we are deficient in that we now require supplementation. But I will tell you, and if you know innate choice at all, there are only a few of those, which we'll get to later. The next thing is, the third criteria, the gold standard criteria, is that there must be, again, a body of research. That's not a single study. A body of research means there's a whole bunch of research that has come to the same conclusion, that has been funded by either neutral parties or a bunch of different parties, that has been taking place in different labs or different research facilities around the world. So there must be a body of research indicating that sufficient intake is unlikely to be achieved with a sustainable dietary alteration. Our motto is and will always remain that the best supplement is no supplement. Getting all that we need, the healthiest people on the planet are hunter-gatherers, and they always, in terms of, they had virtually no chronic illness. And again, chronic illness is the leading cause of our societal health woes now, without any debate. So the best way to get a sufficient intake of essential nutrients is always in whole foods in their naturally occurring form. Eating healthy foods and eating a healthy diet is always the best option. The next best option is a supplement that meets the criteria that we're going to talk about today. But we are absolutely advocates of making every possible effort to get all the nutrients that we require from our diet, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. However, there are some things now, because of the industrial world we live in and because of what's availability of certain foods, there are some things now that it's just not likely that a significant portion of the population is ever going to be able to achieve sufficiency unless they do supplement. So again, that's our third criteria. Our fourth criteria is that there must be a body of research. Again, I won't harp on this any further, but I think we've established what a body of research means. There must be a body of research supporting the effectiveness of supplementation for health, performance, and prevention. It's really crucial that everybody understands that a research study saying that you can take a certain supplement or nutraceutical and it changes, some kind of antioxidant level measured or some kind of other symptom or sign or any other aspect other than actually showing that people are healthier if they take that supplement. They actually perform better, and it actually prevents future illness. What you'll find out is that nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals never prevent future illness, and they never actually increase health. They simply change a symptom or a sign of disease. And so in order for something to be a supplement is, again, about delivering an essential nutrient. So we've said that, listen, we're not going to give, we don't care if there's evidence that it can change a single variable. What we want to know is there evidence that it actually increases health? And if you think about it, if it's not an essential nutrient, if the genes of our cells don't require this to express health and prevent illness, how could it possibly be of any benefit for our health, performance, or prevention? The only possible things that can increase our health, meaning how our cells work, increase our performance, meaning how our cells work and perform, and prevent future illness, meaning things that are caused by toxicity and deficiency in the future, the only things that could possibly do that are essential nutrients. There's no way a nutraceutical or pharmaceutical are ever going to be able to do that. Those things simply treat the effects of being deficient in essential nutrients. So we think it's better to go much further upstream and, like chiropractic always says, address the cause. Nobody is sick because they have a lack of pharmaceuticals or a lack of nutraceuticals. This is a very important concept for us that we feel should be a very important concept for the people who use our products. And the last criteria is that the supplement must be delivered in the most naturally occurring, most genetically compatible, purest, most beneficial form possible. It must be a nutrient complex made in nature, not a synthetic complex made in a chemical lab. The truth is that essential nutrients are meant to be delivered by food in whole food complexes. They're not meant to be isolated. Our bodies don't recognize them that way. The truth is we've never improved on nature. We've never taken anything from nature, chemically altered it, and made it better for humans to ingest. We can preserve things longer by changing them in a chemical lab. We can isolate things in a chemical lab, but we can never make them more beneficial. There's no evidence anywhere that we can change foods in a chemical lab, change them from the form they're found in nature, and make them more suitable for human or any other animal consumption. It just doesn't work that way. We might be able to show that they can have, with a chemical alteration, they might have an effect on one specific variable that we can measure, but if you look deeper into that literature, changing that variable doesn't increase health, it doesn't change performance long term, or prevent illness in the future. So again, all of these things obviously go together. Let's just go a little bit specifically now into actually looking at what omega-3 fatty acids are and why they're important. There are other, today's topic obviously is on omega-3 fatty acids, which is one of just a few essential nutrients which we feel have meet the gold standard criteria for supplementation. So there will be webinars in the future where we'll talk about vitamin D and probiotics, and we'll also look at a whole food source of micronutrients and phytochemicals and antioxidants, etc. But today we're going to focus on omega-3s. Again, let's just go through the criteria regarding omega-3s and make sure they meet this gold standard. So are omega-3s an essential nutrient complex? I think most of you know omega-3s as essential fatty acids, so I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. But they are essential nutrients. We cannot consume them. We cannot create them inside our bodies. Not only can essential really, if you look at the biochemical definition of essential, what that means is that they're not just for caloric consumption. They're actually essential for the metabolic requirements and the physiological requirements of our cell function and our overall systems function. And we cannot make them ourselves. We have to ingest them. So they're essential for function, and they're also essential in the fact that we can't make them. But in biochemical terms, essential just means that our body can't make them, and therefore we have to ingest them. But by deduction, we can realize that if we are required to ingest them, the only things that we are required to ingest are things that our bodies require for health and the prevention of illness, for health, performance, and prevention. So the two things go together. Essential fatty acids are fatty acids that humans must ingest because our body requires them for good health, but we can't synthesize them. Essential fatty acid refers to fatty acids that are required for biological processes, not those that simply act as fuel. This is why carbohydrates are not essential. Carbohydrates are fuel, but they're not essential in terms of as required for biological processes. Many of you have heard me speak about that before. As I often say, you can make carbohydrate out of anything almost, and you can live without carbohydrates very easily. Omega-3 fatty acids cannot be made by human cells and thus require ingestion in the diet. They are classified as essential nutrient complexes. So again, we always turn to the literature just to make sure that everybody understands that we're a very evidence-based company, and that everything that we do is based on not only evidence but also those 5 criteria of the gold standard. the significant health benefits. Now, I just want to talk about this for a second, because very often you'll hear people talking about omega-3s or other supplements as saying that they increase performance, or they decrease, heart disease, and these things are all true. But what we have to understand is that it's not because they're a panacea or a treatment. It's because our bodies require them, and when our bodies are missing them, they just don't work properly. So again, the only thing that a real supplement can take care of or treat is a deficiency of that nutrient, and every illness that's associated with the deficiency of that nutrient. But remember, although there are a plethora of illnesses that are associated with deficiency of essential nutrients, in fact, every chronic illness, the reality, though, is that the essential nutrient is not to treat those conditions. The essential nutrient is to treat the cause of those conditions, which is the deficiency of the essential nutrient. So just understand that the whole concept of innate choice is about addressing the cause of the problem. The cause of the problem is the deficiency of the nutrients. It's not the disease itself. The disease itself is the effect. So it's, again, we always go to address the cause, and the cause is so when we talk about, that it can prevent heart disease, or that people with heart disease do much better, or, cholesterol, or whatever the stuff that we're going to talk about, just understand that the reason these problems exist is simply because they're deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, not because omega-3 fatty acids is a treatment for depression. It's that depression is the effect of a lack of these essential nutrients. So we come back to that often, but it is very important. In addition to the role in helping our heart and brains, these fats also help protect our genetic material, and they actually reduce damage associated with aging. So they actually reduce the telomeric aging. You'll understand that the telomeres are the caps on the end of our chromosomes, and they can actually look at biological age by how shortened those telomeric caps are. So the shorter the cap, the more aging that you have, the older your DNA is, I guess, is a good way to look at it. And so, they're now showing that omega-3 fatty acids are also important in aging, and also, as you can see from the study there on the right, they looked at that and associated with coronary heart disease. Omega-3 fatty acids are essential fats that play a critical role in virtually every human function. Again, what we have to understand is that the reason why essential fatty acids can be seen by so many people incorrectly as a treatment for so many different conditions is not because that omega-3 fatty acids treat any condition. The only condition that omega-3 fatty acids treat is the condition called deficiency of omega-3 fatty acids. However, what a deficiency in omega-3 fatty acids, the amount of problems associated with the deficiency in omega-3 fatty acids is very vast, because they're an essential nutrient that are involved in cell function. So if you take away something required for the function of our cells, you can see even from this slide that you start to get to have problems with growth and development. Brain and nerve function is affected. Emotions and behavior are affected. Obviously affect brain and nerve function. Maintenance of skin and bones, the regulation of healing and inflammation, cholesterol levels, digestion, heart function, immune function, and vision. So just understand that does not mean that omega-3 fatty acids are a panacea or a treatment for any of those conditions. What it means is those conditions are all associated with a deficiency of omega-3 fatty acids. So let's go to the second criteria. There must be a body of research indicating that there is a deficiency of the nutrient complex. So the question is, are we deficient in omega-3 fatty acids? The answer is yes. The industrial diet is dangerously deficient in EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids, and the dietary ingestion pattern is implicated as a causal factor in alarming numbers of preventable illness and disease-related deaths worldwide. So the fact of the matter is if why are we all of a sudden so deficient in omega-3 fatty acids? And the answer to that isn't because we've had a genetic shift or genetic change. It's because the way that we eat now is so different from the way that we're genetically designed to eat. We humans initially got their omega-3 fatty. Most humans, you have to remember, did not live beside the ocean, and most of them did not get them from fish. Most humans got omega-3 fatty acids from eating wild game meat. Wild game meat is very rich in omega-3 fatty acids because wild game consumes a lot of grasses and leaves. and grasses and leaves are rich in a precursor to EPA DHA called ALA, and the animals are very good at converting. Grazing animals are very efficient at converting ALA to EPA and DHA. I'll show you the diagram later. They have the delta desaturase enzyme, delta 6 desaturase enzyme, which is the enzyme that converts ALA into longer chain EPA and DHA. Grass grazing animals are incredible at that conversion. Humans are terrible. We cannot convert vegetable oils into enough EPA and DHA to have sufficient amounts. The literature is clear on that. Again, we'll talk about it in a minute. But just as background, humans are terrible. We're not grass eaters. We could never get enough EPA and DHA in terms of our requirements for our brain and our cortex and all our cell function and cell membranes from eating vegetable sources. It would never happen. We have to ingest preformed long chain EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids, and the source of that for the vast majority of human existence has been wild game meat. The problem now is that we now industrially farm our animals, and we feed them not grasses, we feed them corn and soy and wheat. So these are all omega-6 filled sources of food for the cow, and even if they've been grass-fed for a couple of years, if they are put onto a feedlot for those last 6 weeks, which they all are, they're basically, their omega-3 content disappears. It's basically trace amounts only, and the omega-6 fatty acid levels in that red meat now, or even pork, skyrockets. So it's interesting because we now no longer have our main source of omega-3 EPA and DHA fatty acids in our diets because the meat that we're eating is devoid of it. But not only that, it's very, very rich in omega-6, and as you're going to learn in a minute, the ratio between omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids is very important to our health. It's not just the gross amounts of these things. By the way, we require omega-6 fatty acids. Our brains require arachidonic acid, omega-6 fats for proper function. So many people are afraid of arachidonic acid now because they think it's pro-inflammatory, but the truth is it's only pro-inflammatory if there's not enough omega-3 fatty acids that go along with it. When you have a ratio of a 1-to-1 omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids, that's what's genetically required for humans to express our optimal health, our normal health. We're supposed to be healthy for performance and prevention. So as omega-6 goes up and omega-3 goes down, we get into trouble. We become pro-inflammatory. Literally, it's the ecanosoids suppress our immune system. We're more prone to cancers. I mean, there's a long list of things that occur when we start to change that fatty acid ratio. But the bad reputation that red meat has, when people say you should eat less red meat, that's only industrial red meat. It's not because red meat in itself is bad. It's because red meat that is fed, corn and soy and all these toxic omega-6s is bad because it has no omega-3 and it's full of omega-6. But if you look at hunter-gatherer populations, even that are existing today, if you look at some of the traditional living Inuit or the traditional living Aboriginals in Australia, what you'll find is they eat red meat, tons of red meat, and they have some of the lowest inflammation rates, C-reactive protein levels. They have long bleeding times. They have very, very thin blood because they're getting so much omega-3 from the meat, and the omega-6 and the omega-6 levels in wild game meat are so much lower than the ones industrially fed. So the fact is that also grains are very high in omega-6, and we are grain eaters now in our society. So there are two things that occur why we're so deficient in omega-3 fatty acids and also why our ratio has changed. We just don't get the omega-3 fatty acids in our diet anymore. Most people don't eat enough fish, and if you did, you'd actually be toxic with mercury. How sad to say, but it's true. And the other issue is that we're getting so much omega-6 from the grains we eat directly and from the meat that we eat that's fed omega-6 soy and corn and wheat. So that's the explanation of why the diet is dangerously deficient and also dangerously rich in omega-6. Deficient in omega-3, dangerously rich in omega-6. So out of the research here, Western diets are deficient in omega-3 and have excessive amounts of omega-6 compared with the diet on which human beings evolved and their genetic patterns were established. Again, you'll hear us talk a lot about species-wide and species-specific. The thing that determines what's an essential nutrient for you is your genome. Humans have a genome that is the same for all humans. That's why all humans have the same essential nutrient requirements. A giraffe has different genome, therefore it has different essential nutrient requirements. So we have to understand that it's our genome, it's our genetic code that determines our species and also determines what we require in terms of our environment, in terms of what we require to express health. That's why nutrition should be a concept that's not based on individuality, it's based on what species you belong to. All humans require the same essential nutrients. All members of every species on Earth require the same essential nutrients. And that's really important. Now that, again, if you're into nutraceutical or pharmaceuticals, then you have to have a specific diagnosis in order to prescribe those things. But if you're talking about nutrients and you're talking about supplements, then it's very simple. Every member of the human species who walks through your door requires the same nutrients. It's a very different concept when you're promoting health instead of trying to treat the effects of a lack of health or symptoms. Again, from the Scientific American, although most people in developed countries get plenty of calories daily, their diets are often lacking in key nutrients. So obviously, we can look around and understand that we're not deficient in the amount of food we consume. And isn't it interesting and seemingly a paradox that although we overeat, we're undernourished? And again, that's seems paradoxical, but in an overweight population, that these people are so devoid of the nutrients they require. And again, omega-3 fatty acids, those found in fish and wild game, are important examples. Again, just from the literature, a healthy ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 essential fatty acid intake should be 1-to-1. And then it just goes over there again why the farmed meat versus wild game, the grains and grain products, and why that ratio is now 11-to-1. And some people it's over 20-to-1. And that is devastating to your physiology. And again, what you want to do is you don't want to simply treat that. What you want to do is you want to address the cause of it. So both it's a dietary change that's required for our patients to be well, and part of that dietary change is to get sufficient amounts of omega-3. But it doesn't make any sense just to guzzle omega-3 back at ridiculous amount of levels that are not, metabolically, we're not even capable of utilizing those amounts to treat to treat inflammation. The idea is to say, look, what we have to do is we have to make sure that we actually take nutrition into our body, our essential nutrients into our body in the right amounts. And again, that's not a treatment for anything except the fact it's only a treatment for the fact that we're not taking those essential nutrients into our body in the right amounts. And again, just a real crucial sort of philosophical difference. Criteria 3, there must be a body of research indicating that sufficient intake is unlikely to be achieved with a sustainable dietary alteration. So again, why don't we just tell people to eat more red meat? Because the red meat that they can consume from the supermarkets that is industrially farmed is just not going to do it. It doesn't have any omega-3 and it's toxic with omega-6. Why don't we just tell them to eat more fish? Well, most of the fish that they're going to eat bioaccumulates PCBs and dioxins and mercury because they're eating the larger fish. So unfortunately, you can't tell people to eat fish. I mean, they're telling pregnant women now to avoid tuna and many other kinds of fish. Although they're full of omega-3s, they're so full of some of the other toxins because of what we're doing to our planet. I mean, I feel sick even having to say that, but the truth is that consuming enough fish now to get your omega-3s to where they should be, you are now running a significant risk of toxicity. What about eating the smaller fish like the sardines and herring and anchovies that we use to create innate choice? Well, that would be fine if you could find those that weren't salted, and if you would just eat those and fresh and eat them probably with each meal of every day, you could do it. But again, is that a sustainable alteration? For those who it is, great. Just make sure they're not highly salted and don't have a lot of the other things that you see in those cans of sardines that unfortunately, again, make them toxic. They are still rich in omega-3, but unfortunately the way they're processed can make them toxic. So here are the facts. Neither sufficient consumption of EPA and DHA omega-3 omega-3 fatty acids, nor a proper ratio of consumption of omega-6 to omega-3 is likely to be achieved in industrial society without supplementation. By the way, we feel strongly that simply telling our patients to supplement with omega-3 fatty acids, although it's a fantastic first step, and you will see changes in their inflammatory levels and their symptoms and all kinds of wonderful things immediately. The truth is, we feel it's also important to educate them about the fact that they should stop dumping those toxic omega-6s into their bodies. Fact number 2, industrial humans consume far too much omega-6. We've already gone over that, so I think I'll just quickly breeze through these. Fact number 3, they cannot safely obtain the omega-3 levels from consuming fish because it's toxic. Fact 4, industrial humans cannot simply take ALA omega-3 fatty acids from flax or other vegetable sources because such sources contain no EPA or DHA. There's no vegetable source of fatty acids on the planet, that contain EPA and DHA. So the truth is that we're supposed to ingest preformed because we are unable to convert ALA into EPA and DHA in sufficient amounts. The literature is clear on that. You'll see some in a minute. We're genetically required to ingest preformed EPA and DHA. Industrial and commercial farming methods produce, again, we talked about it, but there's some of the research for you, devoid of omega-3, too rich in omega-6. And again, in industrial nations, again, from the literature, the increased consumption of grains and vegetable oils and grain-fed meat with a decreased consumption of wild game has really changed our omega-6 to omega-3 ratios, and that is devastating for human health. Devastating. Again, just looking at the toxicity level, the U.S. Food and Drug Administration, what you need to know about mercury in fish, again, just letting you and your patients know that, no, we're not trying to sell fish oil. If you could get it from fish, we would be happy that you could do so. Unfortunately, it's just not possible. What we tell all people is there are some fish that are actually pretty clean sources. One of those is sockeye salmon. Sockeye salmon they eat mostly krill. By the way, sockeye salmon are meant to get their fatty acids from krill. Humans aren't. Krill is very low and in gross amounts of EPA and DHA, and the antioxidant benefits that apparently you're supposed to get from krill, for a krill has a lot of antioxidants in it, but a krill is almost microscopic. So for a human, the amount of krill you'd have to require to get your sufficient amounts of antioxidants, there's no possible way you'll ever get enough antioxidants from krill. You'd have to consume bottles of it a day. So yes, krill have a lot of antioxidants in them if you're the size of a krill. If you're the size of the human, no chance, which is why whales have to consume, thousands and thousands of pounds of it in order to get those nutrients out of there. So, but the reason why sockeye salmon are a healthier choice is because they don't eat other fish, so they don't bioaccumulate the toxins in the same way. So what I tell people is on a day where you've had a big meal of sockeye salmon, that might be a day where you don't require to supplement with essential fatty acids that day. To give you an idea, the native populations on the northwest coast of America here, where we are, where the salmon runs are, they basically consumed a salmon a day each, every day. That's what they were consuming. So and again, you've got to make, and they consume seals and a lot of other, sea life, and they also ate wild game as well when they could get it. So just understand that, and furthermore, they didn't consume any grains. So again, we always want to make sure that people understand that it's not just a matter of stuffing yourself full of omega-3s. It's also about making sure that you're not stuffing yourself full of too many toxic 6s. Again, next slide. Humans are genetically incapable of converting LNA or ALA, omega-3 fatty acids, from flax or other vegetable sources. Our ancestors never gathered flax or other vegetable sources and made it into oil, and we never developed the ability to convert LNA or ALA to EPA and DHA. We are genetically designed to ingest preformed EPA and DHA. There's no question about that in the literature. The parent fatty acid ALA found in vegetable oils such as flaxseed or canola or rapeseed is not reliably converted to DHA. Studies in humans have shown that whereas a certain, though restricted, conversion of high doses of ALA to EPA occurs, conversion to DHA is severely restricted. And again, you're going to now see the flow chart here of the essential fatty acids. So you'll see that the alpha-linolenic acid, LNA or ALA from flaxseed or canola oil, any vegetable source, has no EPA or DHA in it. So the rate limiting step. So in other words, if a wildebeest eats grass, it's going to get a lot of ALA or LNA. They have a phenomenal delta-6 desaturase enzyme. You'll see the enzyme there in red that can convert that to EPA and DHA. So again, humans don't. We can't consume vegetable sources and convert it because our delta-6 desaturase enzyme, that rate-limiting step, we're genetically not capable of doing that. And the reason we're genetically not capable of doing it is because we just never, as a species, got our EPA and DHA from flaxseed or other sources. We always got it from consuming wild game, pre-formed EPA and DHA. So again, that's just a flow chart to show you and your patients of why those vegetable sources will never produce sufficient amounts of EPA and DHA. As we go to the next slide here, again, just reinforcing the fact that we do not have the metabolic capability to convert vegetable sources. As DHA is so crucial for human brain development, it is imperative that preformed DHA be consumed by pregnant and nursing mothers. The data is so clear on this that if you look at the research, and many of you have maybe had newsletters from us before, have looked on the website, but moms who consume fish oil, their kids are healthier because they're delivering that DHA through the breast milk. And also, what's really significant is that mothers will actually suck the DHA out of their own cell membranes and out of their own brains to give to their babies because it's so important for infant development. So often what you see is the second child is the one that has the learning disabilities and the other issues because the first child sucked out all the DHA from the mom that she had. And if the mom's not supplementing, then the second child is going to be even more deficient than the first child. So you see it very often in the second and third and fourth children that you see a much more significant effect. So again, we just stated that because omega sufficiency is so pure, it's completely safe for pregnant and nursing mothers. It's not a pharmaceutical. It's not a nutraceutical. It's food. It's safe for everybody. And again, just one more just to keep going. Can human adults adequately convert alpha-linolenic acid to EPA and DHA? And the answer is clearly no. It's clearly no. So, and especially when you add omega-6 to that, you reduce it by a further 40 to 50%. So the truth is, anybody that tells you or believes for themselves that they can use a vegetable source to get enough EPA and DHA has been misled. Humans are not vegetarians. We might be vegetarians by choice of conscience and ethics. We are not vegetarians in terms of our biology or our genes. We require preformed EPA and DHA from animal sources. There's just no way around it. Criteria 4, there must be a body of research supporting the effectiveness of supplementation for health, performance, and prevention. It is meaningless to me whether or not something can treat a disease or even usually even treat a variable associated with a disease. The only thing I care about is, does consuming that product increase the health outcomes for my patient? Does it mean that they're going to be healthier? Are they going to perform better? Will they prevent illnesses in the future? I'm not interested in treating, if just because you lower blood pressure with a herb or a tonic or a pharmaceutical doesn't mean that patient's healthier. It just means they're sick. They remain sick but have a lower blood pressure reading. So what we want to do is start measuring valid outcome measures that talk about health and performance and prevention, because that's really the only way to get a sick person well, is to change their health status, not simply change one of the variables that are considered as a symptom or sign. There's unequivocal scientific evidence regarding both the effectiveness and the necessity of supplementation of EPA and DHA omega-3 fatty acids for health, performance, and prevention. This is a nice one. A Purdue study showed that kids low in omega-3 essential fatty acids are significantly more likely to be hyperactive, have learning disorders, and to display behavioral problems. So one of the things I often ask people is to say, look, do you think it makes sense to wait for children to show up as hyperactive with learning disabilities or have behavior problems and then say, oh, I can treat that with omega-3 fatty acids? Or do you think it makes more sense to identify what the essential nutrients are and make sure that every human infant gets them? I mean, to me, it's unethical to wait for a diagnosis and then try and treat it. It makes no sense to me if we know for sure how we can prevent these things. And not only that, by the way, even if the kid isn't hyperactive or have a learning disability or behavior problems, do you think then that kid therefore doesn't require omega-3 fatty acids? That's scientifically absurd. We can't use sickness and disease as a way to determine whether or not we should promote health. It's just not ethical. And by the way, it's failed in terms of the health of our society. We're sicker than we've ever been. And the reason that is because we're waiting for a disease and then we diagnose it and treat the effects of it instead of addressing the cause. And if the further you go back up that stream, the cause is always going to be how we eat, move, and think. Always. Not how many pharmaceuticals or nutraceuticals we consume, but whether or not we're getting our essential nutrients. That's the key. Another interesting study, American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. The following is a partial list of diseases that may be prevented or ameliorated with sufficient intake of omega-3 fatty acids. Coronary heart disease and stroke, the retinal and brain development issues from essential fatty acid deficiency in infancy, autoimmune disorders, Crohn's disease, cancer of the breast, colon, prostate, mild hypertension, arthritis. Again, omega-3 fatty acids, it makes no sense at all to wait for people to develop these conditions and then try and treat it, even if you try and treat it with omega-3 fatty acids. That's immoral. The idea is to make sure that people have sufficient amounts of these essential fatty acids, not just to prevent these diseases, but to promote the expression of their health potential. It's clearly such a more ethical and scientifically valid approach. Again, next study, by affecting cell membrane composition, metabolism, signal pathways, and by direct control of gene expression. That's right. Whether or not you're sufficient or deficient in omega-3 directly affects your epigenetics, how you express your gene. Sufficient omega-3 essential fatty acid levels play a key role in the prevention of human diseases such as obesity, diabetes, cancer, neurological and brain disorders, and heart disease. I just don't know what else to say. It's self-evident. One more. Due to the overwhelming evidence of benefit, the American Heart Association now recommends the use of omega-3 fatty acid supplements for the primary and secondary prevention of coronary heart disease. And again, let's not just talk about heart disease. If it's an essential nutrient, it's important for every cell in every tissue and every organ and every system of your body. So let's not focus on any specific disease. Omega-3 fatty acids aren't just important for depression. They're not just important for infants. They're not just important for people with heart disease or inflammation or Crohn's disease. They're important for every human because every human requires them because they're an essential nutrient for the human species. The effect of different, I love this study. This is one of my all-time favorites, actually. I love to quote this. The effect of different anti-lipidemic agents on mortality, a systematic review, Archives Internal Medicine, April 11th, 2005. Statin drugs, example Lipitor and Crestor, were 10 times more effective at lowering cholesterol than omega-3 fatty acids. However, in the group that took omega-3 fatty acids had a 44% less death from cardiac events. What this says is this, what I've been telling people for years, is that simply lowering cholesterol with a drug but not addressing the causal deficiency of essential nutrients reduces that variable that you're measuring, cholesterol, but it doesn't reduce death because all you have is a bunch of sick people who remain sick and deficient of omega-3 fatty acids but have a lower reading on the cholesterol test. One of my favorite studies. It's just fantastic. And again, just a summary of some more evidence. Again, we like to have a body of research. Omega-3 deficiencies have also been tied to many conditions, including dyslexia, violence, suicide, depression, memory problems, neurological development, children, weight gain, cancer, heart disease, eczema, allergies. You get it. How is that possible that there's so many different kinds of systems and tissues and organs that are tied to omega-3 fatty acids. Simple, because they're an essential nutrient for the human species. And if we're deficient in them, it affects everything, every cell, every tissue, every organ, every system. Just interesting because obviously, you know, when we can say the word cancer and heart disease, it gets people's attention. They're the two leading causes of death in the free world. Well, at least in the Western free world. Omega-3 fatty acids lower the risk of cancer through their suppressing effect on the biosynthesis of echinosoids, the molecules from omega-6 fatty acids that promote inflammation, suppress immune cells that eliminate cancer, and they stimulate cancer growth. So a high omega-6, low omega-3 level really pushes you towards cancer. Again, omega-3 fatty acids are not a treatment for cancer. Omega-3 fatty acids are required to protect us naturally, innately from cancer. Our immune cells do eliminate cancer. But if they don't have omega-3s and vitamin D, by the way, they certainly can't work properly. And also, being toxic in omega-6 is also going to create an increased biosynthesis of those echinosoids, prostaglandin E2s, etc. They're going to promote inflammation and push us toward cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all kinds of other illnesses, chronic illnesses. Another interesting study, I thought. One more. Sufficient levels of omega-3 fatty acids are associated with less shortening of telomeres. In other words, people who are sufficient with the essential nutrients that they require as a species, they actually age. They actually have a slower rate of aging. Of course, it's not because omega-3 fatty acids are a treatment for aging. It's because we have accelerated aging when we are deficient in the essential nutrients that we require. One more. There might be a couple more, actually, but anyway. DHA is essential for the growth and functional development of the brain in infants. It's also required for maintenance of normal brain function in adults. DHA deficiency are associated with fetal alcohol syndrome, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, cystic fibrosis, unipolar depression, and aggressive hostility. We get it. Again, we're not going to wait for our patients because we're not in the allopathic diagnosis and treatment, nutraceutical, pharmaceutical paradigm. We don't wait for our patients to get sick and then treat the effects of that. What we do is we say, listen, this is what's required by your innate genetic intelligence to express its potential and prevent sickness. That's why we recommend this for every patient every day for life. Very simple. One more on muscle flow. Again, just to be very clear, omega-3 fatty acids are not a supplement to they're not steroids. They're not basically a performance enhancement. The problem is that if you're not sufficient in omega-3 fatty acids, your performance is being hampered. So when we take deficient people and we make them sufficient with omega-3 fatty acids, they actually have better better muscular performance. If you look at the quote there, the polyunsaturated fatty acids, DHA and EPA, affect vascular relaxation and involve factors such as nitric oxide release that contribute to exercise-induced increases in skeletal muscle blood flow. So when you're deficient in omega-3s, you can't perform the same way. So again, it's not a nutraceutical as a performance enhancer. It's a required nutrient that you need for your cell functions and your cells to perform. Simple. One more for the sportos, and people deal with a lot of athletes. Because influencing membrane fluidity, omega-3 fatty acids can modify the activity of membrane-bound enzymes, the number and affinity of receptors, the function of ion channels, the production of activity of neurotransmitters, and signal transduction. Omega-3 fatty acids enhance both the vascular and neurological performance of muscular performance. By the way, this is also why omega-3 fatty acids have such an impact. Why people who become sufficient actually have they actually start to lose weight, and why it has a really effect on diabetes and insulin sensitivity, because you need omega-3 fatty acids in your cell membranes. And so when your cell membranes become deficient in omega-3 fatty acids, they very often get replaced with the trans fats or the omega-6 fatty acids. So the affinity of your insulin receptors on your cell membranes, it lowers the sensitivity. So the insulin does not attach the same way. And so you get insulin resistance. So again, just a little bit of background there. And this is just a nice graphic or picture example. And if you just look at that study that was done in the European Journal of Clinical Investigation 2005, so you'll see that the lighter color is the before and the after is after supplementation with fish oil. So if you look at, you get increased vigor, decreased anger, decreased anxiety, decreased fatigue, decreased depression, and decreased confusion. So again, I understand it's repetitive, but it's important to me, really important. That would you wait for someone to express anxiety and fatigue and depression and confusion before you just suggested that they take omega-3s? Or should everybody who comes through your door be told about this information and make sure that there's sufficient omega-3 from birth till the time they pass? I mean, it just makes no sense. This is not a treatment. This is not a nutraceutical. It's a supplement that every one of your patients requires every day for life. And it should be part of the care protocols. It's ethical to make it part of the care protocols, and in my opinion, unethical not to. Number 5, the supplement must be delivered in the most naturally occurring, most genetically compatible, purest, most beneficial form possible. And the reason I say most beneficial is because clearly the most beneficial form of any kind of nutrient is the form that is supplied in nature or the closest to it as possible. I often use the example: what would you think would be the best way to supplement with fish oil, or pardon me, with olive oil? Would you think that you should squeeze an olive and put it in a bottle and deliver it? Or do you think you should squeeze an olive into a container, take it to a chemical lab, and chemically alter the omega or the fatty acid ratio in it and try and pretend that it's better for human consumption? It makes no sense. The best possible form is the form that's closest to nature, because clearly our genes are designed to require things as they are found in nature, not as they are altered by humans. It's a very simple rule. Gosh, if you just followed that rule, you'd know more about nutrition and get nutrition better in your office, than anything else, in my opinion. So fact, your body requires the full complement of fatty acids found in fish, and EPA and DHA essential fatty acids in the ratio and triglyceride forms that naturally occur in the foods. You see so many people concentrating these fish oils and put them in ethyl ester forms. No, you are genetically designed to ingest in fats in their normal forms, and they come found in food and flesh in that triglyceride form, in that natural 18-12 ratio. This is what is genetically required by your cells for health, prevention, and performance. Humans have never chemically altered naturally occurring food and made it healthier. We will never change what is naturally occurring and make it genetically more suitable. I mean, listen, do you think that humans are going to improve on Mother Nature or on God's design? I mean, however you look at this, whether you look at it from a genetic evolution standpoint or whether you look at it from a creation standpoint, do we honestly believe that we're going to change what the earth provides for us in a chemical lab and make it better? It's absurd. It makes no sense. That's why when you see all these nutraceuticals and pharmaceuticals, they're never talking about increasing health and performance and prevention. They're always talking about a symptom or sign of disease and trying to reduce it. They're never talking about health and prevention and performance. That's why you would never say that people who come into your office should all get a nutraceutical or pharmaceutical. You have to figure out what they're sick with first so you can figure out what you're treating. It makes no sense. Omega sufficiency maintains the full complement of naturally occurring fatty acids and the natural EPA-DHA ratio. The natural occurring triglyceride structure is also maintained. Omega sufficiency is molecularly distilled and ultra purified to a pharmaceutical grade. Doesn't have anything to do with the pharmaceutical company. The operational definition of pharmaceutical grade means that the facility is inspected and has to maintain a high level of cleanliness, et cetera, et cetera. So it's an inspected facility. That's what pharmaceutical grade means. And then it's infused with antioxidants as it's bottled, ensuring maximum purity and freshness. We have every batch third-party tested, and we publicly post the results of our third-party testing, meaning that every time it's not us or the company that supplies us with the fish oil that does the testing. We have to send that fish oil out, and it gets tested by an independent research company that tells us, make sure that there's no oxidation, that there's no PCBs or dioxins, and then we post those results. So we feel that's very important. Omega sufficiency is derived exclusively from wild anchovy, herring, and sardine from pristine cold waters. And this is important too. Omega sufficiency is sourced from a sustainable, highly regulated fishery. The sardine and anchovy and herring fishery is very, very highly regulated. Only a very small percentage of the current anchovy, sardine, and mackerel harvest goes towards fish oil for humans. The vast majority of the harvest has been for pet food, fertilizers, and non-human use. They basically take these fish, they catch them, they take the roe out of the females, because that's where all the money is in the caviar, and they may or may not can some, for sardines, and they may or may not use some of the meat, but very rarely, and the rest of it goes into a landfill or is used for fish fertilizer or plant fertilizer or food. So again, most of the stuff that we use is stuff that would have been thrown away anyway, which I really like. I think that's excellent. And by the way, there's a huge potential to increase the amount that goes towards human consumption just from right now what's currently the waste or byproducts of the fishery. So that's good news too. We flavor our oil with natural lemon flavoring, and it actually tastes good. As many of you know, that the oil tastes good. What I always say to people is, look, whenever you're chewing one of the capsules or taking our oil, make sure you let people know and brag about the fact that it's not fishy. And if you say to them, they might be freaked out a little bit by the oil in their mouth because, that's a very unusual thing for humans to do, to drink oil by itself. But if you say, always tell them, focus on how it tastes, not how it feels in your mouth. Just tell me what that tastes like. What's the flavor that you're getting? And if they come to you and say, well, I've got this other one, that I can get at Walmart for $2 or whatever else, or it's got this super high concentrate, you can teach them, well, how do you think it got highly concentrated, by nature or in a chemical lab? And what do you think would be better for you? Take a bite of that capsule and tell me how it tastes. When you take a fish out of the water fresh, it doesn't smell like fish. It only starts to smell like fish after it rots and starts to oxidize. So it shouldn't smell fishy. Again, if you take our oil and expose it to the air on your fingers, it'll eventually smell fishy because it starts to oxidize. But the oil in the bottle that you take out and consume or in the capsule will not smell fishy. A lot of those cheap fish oils will. And when you get your patients to sample those capsules that they're consuming, like bite into them and chew them, that's just such a great way to get them to understand the quality of what's in the Innate Choice product. So again, just to review the gold standard criteria for supplementation for all supplements, it must represent an essential nutrient complex. Again, omega sufficiency does. There must be a body of research indicating that there is a dietary deficiency of the nutrient complex. Again, omega sufficiency meets that criteria. There must be a body of research indicating that sufficient intake is unlikely to be achieved with a sustainable dietary alteration. Once again, omega sufficiency meets the gold standard. There must be a body of research supporting the effectiveness of supplementation for health, performance, and prevention, not just for the treatment of some variable or symptom or sign of sickness or for just some people with a certain condition, but for all human health, performance, and prevention. So it's part of the standard patient protocol for every patient and every member of their families. And number 5, the supplement must be delivered in the most naturally occurring, most genetically compatible, purest form possible. And again, the best thing is always going to be food. We get it. The next best thing is the thing that mimics naturally occurring food as closely as possible, not something where they've got a marketing ploy to tell you how great it is because of how much they've changed it in a chemical lab. It just doesn't work. Omega sufficiency sets the gold standard for natural ratio, full fatty acid complement, meaning we don't concentrate just the EPA and DHA. We put in all the fatty acids that are found in a fish because that's what the original concept of the importance of omega-3 fatty acids came from studying the Nordic and Inuit peoples. And of course, they consumed the whole fish or the whole seal. We don't want to suck out all the rest of the stuff. You want to deliver it in a whole food, whole fatty acid form. So we do that. And we have an unwavering dedication to quality and purity that we feel sets the standard. It's available, as you know, in either lemon or strawberry lime gel caps. I think just lemon in Canada for you Canucks that are listening. And one of the things that I tell my patients and the things that I tell chiropractors all over is look, how could we not recommend this for every patient? It takes a few seconds and it costs a few pennies a day. And the changes in terms of their health, performance, and prevention, I mean, the return on investment is incredible for their health. Your return on investment for educating your patients about this, I mean, they will thank you forever and see you as, start to see you as a source of information that's so important for them. They are never going to begrudge you offering them a very fairly priced, incredibly high quality product that's so important for their health and the health of their children. You're going to make a very fair, ethical profit on a product that is required for your patient. You're not selling this because you're trying to make the most money or the highest markup. You're selling this because you're going to be ethically paid for providing an ethical service, which is based on what's best for your patient. So I really just think I think it's an act of omission and not to recommend this for your patients. And again, if you can find a product that's just as good, great. But they got to be taking something. They have to be. It's just too important not to. Becoming sufficient omega-3 essential fatty acids is required to get well and get performing better. Staying sufficient in these essential nutrients is required to stay well and stay performing well. You don't take these for a short time. Again, what essential nutrient do humans only require for a short period of time, or only if they have a certain disease, or only if they're a certain age, or only a certain gender? That's ridiculous. That's the allopathic pharmaceutical nutraceutical paradigm. Essential nutrients are required by everybody every day for life. So as soon as you're selling something in your practice that you're not providing and recommending for everybody, then it's not an essential nutrient. It's outside the paradigm of performance and health and prevention. As soon as you're providing something for only some of your patients but not for all of them, or for a short period of time but not forever, you're outside the concept of health and prevention and performance, and you're into treatment, which means they're never going to get well, because if you're not addressing the cause, then you're never going to get then you're never actually going to return them to proper health. So the question is, who needs to supplement with omega sufficiency or fish oil? Clearly the answer is everybody, every day for life, which is why it should be part of the protocol. This is not something that is an add-on. This is not an adjunct. This is not a cervical pillow. This is something that every one of your patients requires, and unless they're already supplementing, we know for sure they're deficient, and we know for sure that is adversely affecting their health. I can see no logical or ethical or scientifically valid reason not to make this part of your care protocols. So that's what we suggest for everybody. I hope that was informative. I apologize for not being able to take questions. We just had too many people register, which, again, thank you for the hundreds of you that did register. But it's obviously not possible to go back and forth with people when there's that many. So we are happy to take your questions if you send them through by email. You can certainly phone us as well at any time. And again, just a reminder that this will have been recorded for you to listen to. There'll be no charge, obviously. That'll be available on the Innate Choice website in the resource section for the practitioners or for the people who are clients. And also, this PowerPoint that I just went through is available for you just to send your patients to view. We don't collect their name. We don't solicit them. They can simply go on and view that. There's no charge to it. Or if you choose, you can download that presentation at no cost and deliver this PowerPoint presentation in your communities and for your patients. So I hope it was helpful. I appreciate your attention, and I look forward to next month because we're going to do another one. So thank you very much, and goodbye.